Hi, friends. I have been wanting to do this video for a while, and I just haven't, I haven't made the time, I should say. My life has drastically changed in some of the most profound ways that it's hard to find words to describe. In some ways, I could say that, well, in many ways, I'm really living a life beyond my wildest dreams. After many years of hard work and a lot of falling on my face, like a lot. And, you know, I'm married to just the most extraordinary man who is everything to me. My children are amazing, and I have a yoga studio, which is something I've wanted my own space for about 16 years. Some of you knew me way back when I was working really hard to have my own space. And through all of that, I've had a lot of transformation. And many of you know that I have started to slow down and in many ways stopped seeing one-on-one clients in the way that I have for many years, just sort of like the one-off sessions. And I'll talk more about that at a later date. There's a lot of reasons why I have stopped doing that work, or am slowing it down to the point where I will be stopping it. Really important. It's actually really important and warrants its own conversation. But something that I want to share, which is actually pretty deeply personal, but I am someone who have been very open about my story, as many of you know. You know, I've always talked about how I stopped drinking, or I got sober in 1998. I was 20 years old. And I really dove into the 12 steps, and I spent years in recovery, sponsoring people, doing all the things that, you know, you do when you go into a program. Spent a lot of time in therapy and with healers and all of those things. And over the last year, I was introduced to a sacred medicine that I went to work with a shaman. And it changed my life. And one of the things that I have come to realize is that I don't have an addiction issue, that I ended up in the 12 steps for a lot of reasons, and I'll share more about that as I go on, not necessarily in this video. I definitely needed to stop drinking, stop using. I don't drink, I don't partake in most things. Plant medicine from time to time, but otherwise, no. And I don't mean marijuana. But I do so with a lot of intention for my spiritual work. And what I've come to understand is that I got sober at 20 after having a series of traumatic events that I just didn't have the foundation to deal with. Being young, of course, I didn't know myself. I didn't have the inner tools to deal with all of the things that were coming at me. And so while I definitely needed to not, drink, I needed to stop doing all of that so I could find myself, so I could find my foundation, and I could get to know who I am as a person and as a human being, and learn how to, be resilient and find myself, grow, evolve. So I think all of that was incredibly necessary. I no longer identify as a recovering person. And I am going to share more about that moving forward. There's a lot that I really want to share, just because I do feel it's important to be real. And I feel like my story could help others. I carried this identity as a recovering person for a really long time, and it really did become a big part of my identity. And I don't identify that way anymore. I'm really clear that I needed a lot of help at the time. I have no desire to drink or anything like that. That's the thing, that it doesn't have anything to do with the substances. I'm very good at self-regulating. I'm very good at trusting myself and taking care of myself. I don't necessarily overuse or overdo most things, like really anything. I'm pretty well-balanced person, especially at this point in my life. And my recovery at this point is, or has been, learning how to trust myself in deeper ways. Some of the old lingo that I found in 12-step program, I think, while it definitely has its purpose for me, ended up taking me away from trusting myself and valuing my feelings, because I was told that I couldn't trust them because I was diseased. And I want you to know that I have the deepest respect for 12-step programs, because I do believe that they save lives. They absolutely do. And I know that I needed to lean on them for many years. But there's a lot too that I've had to unravel from my time in the 12 steps. And it's a really controversial topic. It's also taboo depending on who you're talking to. But in service of just being real about my experience and who I am, I now feel myself and see myself as a whole person that trusts herself, that understands self-regulation and self-nourishing, that I don't tend to have to lean on a bunch of vices to get through anything. That's just not my way. You know, I've learned to meditate, to journal, to do yoga, to dance, to work with myself in different ways that are productive and healthy. And so that's just sort of the start of this journey. I have a lot more to share, as you can imagine. But I just wanted to take the time, because I thought, gosh, if I don't do it now, like, when am I going to do it? So, yeah. Some really big changes for me. If you know me, you know that the recovery thing was a really big part of my story, and I still feel it's a beautiful part of my past, but it isn't who I am anymore. It's not how I show up to the world. And I've been learning a lot about myself through dissolving this really part of myself that became just a part of my ego story that I just don't identify with anymore. So there's more to come. I just, again, in service of being honest and opening up a conversation that I know will ruffle some people's feathers, and I'm okay with that, because I truly am speaking from my heart and my experience. I do think there is a place for the 12 steps. I do think they're incredibly valuable and life-saving for a lot of people. And I also feel that that's not the only way, and that not everyone who ends up there ends up needing to stay there. So, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts, just because I'd love to have this conversation. Keep them nice, though, please. You don't need to criticize or be mean. And no, I'm not in denial. I can assure you of that. Love you all. More to come.